Welcome to The Lion Within Us, a podcast serving Christian men who are hungry to be the leaders God intends you to be. I'm your host, Chris Granger. Let's jump in. All right, fellas, it is the meat episode time. Let's get into it, okay? So the scripture of the week this week is in the book of Job, not Job, Job, chapter 8, verse 7. It says, your beginnings will seem humble, so prosperous will your future be. All right, fellas. So we took some time. We unpacked that verse at length in our spiritual kickoff episode. So go back and listen to it. Check it out so you can see how you can simplify and apply that to your life. And as a quick reminder, guys, we do that Monday through Friday within our Line Within Us community. It's a free offering now. Head over to thelionwithin.us to start your daily spiritual kickoff experience. Guarantee you'll have a lot of fun with it, a lot of chance to engage directly in our platform with me, with others, and just a great way to hopefully grow and be encouraged in your spiritual walk. So for this episode, I'm excited. We have Mitch Matthews joining us. He is the creator of the Dream, Think, Do podcast, and he's a very successful coach, speaker, and pretty much a serial entrepreneur as well. He helps guys really think through what God has called them to do. And Mitch shares with us today, he's going to share an incredible story of 6 miracles in his life. And how those 6 miracles for him, it was him and his wife. The story was just it's going to have you on the edge of your seat. But how they remain just faithful along every step of the way, and how God would just remove the barriers first and foremost, but how in the darkest of times, where we turn matters. And you can turn several places, guys. You can turn to a bottle. You can turn to some pills. You can turn to another woman. You can turn to your work. There's lots of ways to numb ourselves. Mitch turned to his faith, and that was incredible. So I was encouraged by the story. He also we talk a lot about business and how to do what God's calling you to do, and how you take that next step. When is it? If He's called you to do something, what does that leap look like? So I was highly encouraged, and hopefully you will be too, with this conversation with my friend, Mitch Matthews. Well, Mitch, welcome to The Lion Within Us. How you doing today, man?
Chris, this is an honor, buddy. I love being here. I love what you're doing, and I'm excited for our conversation.
Oh, for sure. And I always love just to start, man. Tell us something fun about you that maybe not many people know about.
Absolutely. So, well, one thing is, just yesterday we put our oldest son on a bus, and he is being deployed to the Middle East. He's in the National Guard. And so, I mean, it's fun because we are wildly proud of him. And this is a dream that he's had for a number of years. He grew up patriotic, probably one of the most patriotic people that I know. I'd love to take credit for that, but it's just a part of God, how God wired him. So this is something that he's wanted to do. And so it's a dream that he's walking out. But as you know, with kids, you want to support them in their dreams, and you trust God as they walk out those dreams. And then, as my wife and I said last night, as we were crying a little bit too, of, hey, supporting kids in their dreams is complicated, right? Because there's a part of you that wants to just keep them safe and home and with boring lives and all that stuff. But he is living his dream, and we couldn't be more excited. So it's I don't know how people that don't walk in faith do it personally, because that's really one of the big things that's made this possible for me to have sanity, is to say, Lord, I know you got him, and help him to be the best version of him that you created him to be. And God's been answering that prayer his whole life. So we're just excited for this journey.
That's so awesome, man. So we'll be praying for his safety for sure. Now, do you have other kids? Is he the only one?
We do. We have our Ben is our older son, and Alex is our younger son, and Alex is a working actor in LA. So yet another son that's walking out a big dream, and things are coming together for that. But as you can imagine, that's also a big opportunity to pray.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So yeah, it's a wild time to be in Hollywood, but he's making it work, and it's exciting, and God's got him. And so, yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
That's awesome, Mitch. That's awesome. Well, I'm super excited to have you here. I definitely your story, your testimony, maybe get some of the guys up to speed of how your faith journey and your discipleship journey. Just love to let them know like how you came into walking and being a disciple.
Yeah, I love it. Because my faith, it's truly Well, it's who I am, and don't walk this thing out perfectly, but God is so good, and it's such an honor to get to walk with him, and he just has proven trustworthy. I grew up in a nice church in a small town, all of that, but I wound up really being introduced to the power of prayer and getting to kind of find out who the Holy Spirit is, all of that, by going to an event for another church in town. And the youth pastor noticed me. I was actually there because my brother was in the band of a Christian rock band, and I was just in my early teens. And the youth pastor, who was an older guy, walked with a cane, said, "Hey, who are you?" And I told him that, explained why I was there. And he said, "Hey, come to my office at 4 o'clock on Wednesday." I'm like, "Why? I don't come to this church. I don't need to, I don't need to do that." And he's like, just come to my office 4 o'clock on Wednesday. So I rode my bike up to their church and walked into his office, and he was old school, man. You'll love this. He had a picture of him with Roy Rogers and Dale Evans on his wall. And I'm like, I'm in. I don't know who this guy is, but if he's hanging with Roy Rogers, for crying out loud. And his name was Stan Weirson, and Stan Weirson wound up mentoring me every Wednesday for a year plus, and just talked to me about who God is and what it is to pray, and got me going to a summer camp where I really learned even more about prayer. And just it changed my life. And I will admit that in college, I wound up going and living in England a couple of times, and met my wife, which was divine and God's greatest gift in my life, other than my salvation. It's just incredible. But we kind of walked away from the church. Not out of rebellion. We just moved to Montana, and every weekend we wound up saying, "Hey, let's go to the mountains." And we said, this is our church. It's just getting closer physically, and to God, and going to higher elevations. Literally all of those things. So we just had about a decade where we didn't go to church, and then my wife and I had a cancer scare. My wife was diagnosed with cancer, and we found out on a Christmas Eve, a snowy Christmas Eve, and we were in Billings, Montana at the time. And fast forward 3 weeks, God pulled off 6 miracles in one day. Literally, like there are people that don't even come from a faith background that can't even explain how God did what he did in 6 miracles in one day. And that just really woke both of us up to that God is with us, that God is moving, that God is at work and wants to be in every part of our lives, and know that we love him and that he loves us and all of those things. So that really changed our lives. And I stayed in business. I thought about going into ministry, but God really called me to be in ministry in the marketplace. He talked to me about being a missionary in the biggest mission field on the planet, which is the marketplace. And so I went that direction. And my wife now runs a huge prayer ministry and a alpha ministry at our church. And that's her full-time gig and all those types of things. So God is amazing. God is good. God is miraculous and funny, and has done some incredible stuff in us, through us, and for us. So I'm grateful.
6 miracles. I mean, you don't have
Yeah.
to go.
Oh no, we can definitely talk about that. I mean, it's wild. I love seeing God heal people, and we've gone on trips around the world now. I really believe in the power of prayer and healing prayer. And we were just in Brazil a few months ago and had 10 days down there praying for people and saw miraculous healings, which it was just incredible. But it really did start for us with Mel got diagnosed with cancer. Her doctor called, she was working, she was managing a Pier 1. I don't even think those stores exist anymore, but she was managing a Pier 1 at the time. So I got the phone call on a Christmas Eve, and our doctor was called us in tears. So I knew it was bad. And she let us know that the test results had come back, and they were exactly what we thought might be. And so I had the dubious task of going then and telling Mel that she had cancer, and that it was very fast moving cancer. And so we had to move quickly. So that afternoon on Christmas Eve, I'm calling different cancer centers trying to get help because she was going to need to have significant surgery. And through a course of amazing miracles, it probably is a separate miracle. It just didn't happen on this one day. We got into the best OBGYN oncologist, and his name was Gary Johnson, in Salt Lake. He was the best of the best, and it was through a miracle that we were able to get an appointment with him. And so the plan was, on this particular day, we were going to fly to Salt Lake City and have a pre-op visit, and then have the surgery the next day. And we were probably going to be in Salt Lake for a month after that, with what Mel was going to have to go through. But on that particular day, what we call our 6 miracle day, we went to the airport. We were in Billings, Montana. And I fly a lot. I know you probably travel a lot. I've never had this happen, but we got to Billings, Montana's airport. We get there, an hour or so before the flight, and the person at the gate said, "Hey, everybody's here, so we're just going to go ahead and have you guys leave. We're just going to go ahead and have you leave." And so we wound up, like, I've never had that happen. Everybody's looking around like, what's going on now? So we actually landed in Salt Lake before we were even supposed to take off from Billings, which was miracle number 1, which was nuts, right? And then I don't know whether it's just great customer service or a true miracle. I'm putting in the miracle category, but we rented a car by Enterprise, and I always mention their name because it was a part of the deal. And we literally walked off our plane, and we were in our Enterprise rental car in like 12 minutes. It was nuts, like how fast this process, like our heads were spinning, like what is even going on? And so Mel and I wound up having a lot more time than we thought. And so I know now it was a Holy Spirit nudge. I thought maybe it was just me being organized or me being nervous or whatever. But this was back in the days where you actually traveled with a lot of your medical records, so we had this big pile and file of stuff. And I said, "Hey, what if we go to the doctor's office, the surgeon's office, and drop this stuff off?" Because I knew he was in a labyrinth, like a major, huge medical community and large building. So I said, let's just go and let's just see if we can connect and drop this stuff off. At least we'll know where the office is for when we go tomorrow. So we go to this office, and it's he's a world-renowned oncologist, gynecologist, and so we walk into his office, and of course it's just busy and just chaos and all this stuff. And we walk up, and I explain who we are and why we're there, and we're just dropping this stuff off, and we just wanted to check in. We've got an appointment tomorrow. And she stops. She's like, "Wait," she said, "we just had something happen, never happened. Somebody canceled an appointment today. Do you want to see the doctor today?" Which we didn't know that was a miracle, but it was a miracle. And it was funny because she actually said, "Well, and tomorrow then you can just be tourists." Like that was not on our mind. Tourism in Salt Lake City was not on our mind that day, right? But she's like, "Well, we'll just get you in today." We're like, "Okay." So we wait just a few minutes, then they escort us back, and we're literally supposed to have a 10-minute conversation with him, and then we're major surgery. On this is Wednesday, and then we're going to have major surgery on Friday. So it's just supposed to be a 10-minute consult on what to expect, getting to meet the doctor for the first time, all this stuff. And Mel's exhausted. My wife, Melissa, was exhausted. And there was only one chair, which was a little odd. So there's one chair in the room, and there was the exam table. So I said, "Just sit down on the chair and I'll sit on the exam table." And we've never met this doctor before, but he's an oncologist, gynecologist, right? Like, I mean, so, and he walks in the door, and he can't see Mel because she's hidden behind the door. He sees me on the exam table, and he's like, "Wait, we don't do weenies here." Like, I just immediately love this guy, right? And we laugh, and it was exactly what we needed. And so Mel sat on the exam table. I sat on the chair. He sat down in his little, stool or whatever, and started talking with us. And again, this is the next miracle we didn't know was happening, but it was. Is all he was supposed to do was just talk with us and then send us on our way. But he stopped, and he said, "You know what? I want to do some tests," which did not make any sense at all because we'd had every test done known to man. And he's like, "Oh, I want to do some tests." And so started the test process and all these things, and in and out of the room. Nurses were in and out of the room, in and out of the room. And finally he sticks his head back in. He said, "Get your clothes on and meet me in my office." And Mel and I look at each other like, this is either good or really bad, you know? And so they walk us down to his office, and he's a short guy. I'll never forget, like, it was a little bit like he had this massive desk in his office, and it was a little bit like seeing Kermit on the other side of a, big desk and all this stuff. And he walks in and he's like, hey, okay, this is going to sound weird, but my wife had invasive cervical cancer, which was moving very fast, all that stuff. So we were there to have a hysterectomy, and we didn't have kids at the time. We were in our late 20s. We had just started that process, talking through those kinds of things. But he walks in, sits down by this big desk, and he's like, hey, seems like you kids would like to have kids. And I think that's about the cruelest question on the planet, as far as considering what we're facing and what we think is the next step.
Yeah.
He said, here's the thing is, we've had a miracle. He's like, cancer isn't gone, but it's regressed. And it's regressed enough that would allow us to do a procedure that wasn't an option before. And he said, honestly, to be perfect, I'm good. I'm a good surgeon, but my partner in my practice pretty much created this procedure. He's the best of the best. He's leaving for a 30-day trip to Russia tomorrow. But I caught him as he was leaving the office. He was just heading out. I caught him and I told him your story and I told him about you kids. And we think he could do that procedure. And since he created this procedure, we have our own surgical suite. He's in there right now prepping the suite. And we would like to just do that procedure right now. And he's like, if we get it all, then you guys can have kids. If we don't, you guys come back down in a month and have the surgery that we were talking about. So like my brain, as you can imagine, Chris, my brain was like having a hard time processing what was going on, especially because then my wife jumped over that big desk and gave Kermit a huge hug, all this kind of stuff. So we go down, and the procedure, they actually allowed me to be in the surgical suite. I had to scrub up and put all the stuff on, but I could be there with my wife praying and all that. And I'll never forget. What's wild is that, at the end of that, they're like, well, we think we got it. But the surgery was much less invasive than what we were expecting to be there. We were expecting to be there for a month. They're like, you guys could go home within a couple of days if you want. And we're like, okay, that's amazing. And we found out then within days that they had gotten all the cancer. And within a month, we were pregnant with our older son, Ben, which is absolutely amazing. Now, you will love this story, and not everybody gets it, but you'll appreciate this. So a few months later, we had again, I always appreciated God. I'd been introduced to God through, Stan Weirson, my mentor as a kid, all these things. But we had really kind of stepped away from all of that. But after this experience, you can't deny all those things just lining up in one day. Like, that is crazy, right? But God had an extra special surprise for me in that later on, I'm getting back into the Bible, reading the Bible, and I do this deep dive on the Lord's Prayer because I really wanted to understand prayer more at that point. And I'm looking at what Jesus tells us, and he says, that our Father, our Father, and I look at that, and it's like our Father, our Abba, our Daddy, right? Like, that's an intimate word. I didn't understand it was such an intimate word, but it's not this stoic, distant Father. It's like Daddy, Daddy. I can just come to you. I can trust you, Daddy, right? We can raise our arms and say, Daddy, pick me up, right? That's when I realized, or I recognized the fact that the surgeon that God had gotten us to, that world-renowned surgeon, his name was Gary Johnson, and that's actually my wife's dad's name.
Really?
And in prayer, I was just like, wait a second, what? And God's like, I did not want you to miss that Daddy did it. Wow. So it's amazing. So I can tell you, just like Israelites, I can say that we had that amazing, miraculous experience. And there are days where I still forget that God is big and that God saved us and God saves us all the time, all that stuff. I can be so Israelite. You see the Israelites with Moses and you're like, guys, he does these amazing things. And 3 days later, they're worshiping, gold cows. It's like, what are you doing? And it's like, oh, wait, I do that too. It's like people think, oh my gosh, you had this amazing experience. You're probably always going to have faith. And you're always, I'm still tempted to worry. I'm still tempted to have fear, all those things, even though that experience and a lot of other amazing experiences have happened in our lives. I'm still tempted, like everybody else, to forget and run the other way all the time. But God is good and he is patient and he is kind and he is hilarious. And so, so that's a little of our story.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Mitch. What an incredible story. Guys, I don't even know what to say to that. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come right back and keep digging in with Mitch. I've got something big to share. We're making a major shift because we know the battle was real, and it's time more men had access to the support they need. For too long, guys have been trying to carry the weight alone, pressure at work, tension at home, wounds from the past, and a world that demands strength but offers no place to rest. We see it, we've lived it, and that's exactly why we built our community. It's a stronghold. A place where warriors can find rest, truth, and a band of brothers standing beside them. And starting now, we're making it easier than ever to step in. We've lowered the barrier to just $15.99 a month. That means for less than the cost of a drive-through lunch, you can join a brotherhood that's centered on Christ and built for growth. Inside, you'll find access to our daily spiritual kickoffs every Monday through Friday, our Lion Lunches, our Bible studies, our Friday Forge gatherings, all that and so much more. Every man needs a stronghold, and you don't have to fight alone. If you've been waiting for the right time to jump in, this is it. Go to thelionwithin.us and join the community and see for yourself what happens when iron truly sharpens iron. So, Mitch, I'm telling you, man, that goosebumps, first of all,
Yeah.
as you were going through that, I didn't know where it was going to land, but man, so my gracious, brother, that is incredible.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh,
So, I mean,
absolutely.
God moved in some incredible ways there. Maybe for professionally,
Yeah.
how has he shown you the path that he wants you to be on? Because obviously you work with coaches and entrepreneurs, you content creators. I mean, he put you on that specific path. How do you know that was the path that he was calling you to?
I love that. So what I appreciate about God is that God is calling me to be all that he created me to be, and that can be a lot of different things in different seasons, right? And I know, like, for me, I had a season where I was in corporate sales and pharmaceuticals, and I excelled in that. I really did. It was funny. We actually had to talk to our older son, Ben, during that season because his kindergarten teacher called us. I was selling pharmaceuticals, right?
Yeah.
And his kindergarten teacher called us and said, "Hey, you need to talk to Ben about how he talks about what you do." And I said, "Well, why is that?" And she said, "Well, today we had the 'What do your moms and dads do?' talk in kindergarten, and Ben said my dad sells drugs out of the trunk of his car." So we talked with Ben about what that meant. So I had a lot of success with pharmaceuticals and moved up the chain and got promoted into corporate training, and I helped to run a training department of a $2 billion pharmaceutical company, all those things. But then I got promoted into a bad fit job. And hopefully you've never had that, but I got promoted into a bad fit job. It wasn't a bad job. I really want to be clear about that. It was just a bad fit for me. And I was kind of mad at God, to be perfectly honest, when that happened, because I had prayed through that, this opportunity, and it felt like the right opportunity. And when I got in there within days, probably within hours, I'm like, oh no, this is a bad fit. But I'm wildly grateful for that because God still provided during that time. But it was a real wake up call to say, hey, the season has changed. You're not supposed to live the rest of your days in this industry. I'm calling you to something else, right? And so he still used all of those things to prepare me for that next season, but he used that bad fit job and worked through that bad fit job to wake me up to say, hey, season's changing, get ready. And so I started to say, okay, well, what does that look like? And, started to talk with them about what does the next season look like? And he had always put, entrepreneurship on my heart. I had kind of forgotten about it, to be honest. That's what I say is that, some dreams get beat up and some dreams get buried. Right. And that I had always wanted to be an entrepreneur. since I was a teenager, but that had just kind of gotten buried by comfort and success and other things and all that stuff. So I started to say, hey, maybe it's time for that. And then I started to look at different options. And one particular night, it had been a really hard day in that bad fit job. And I came home and my wife, and I think I married an encourager like you did. So my wife brought me a magazine, and it was a business magazine, and there was an article that was profiling this really successful entrepreneur. And I started to read it, and it really didn't hit. I was like, "Oh, thank you," but she's like, "No, no, not that article. Look at the side article." And there was this sidebar article about this entrepreneur's coach. And she's like, "That's what you do. The things they're describing that he does, that's what you do." And so I started to read this article, or the side article about this coach. I didn't honestly even realize this was a thing, right? To be a coach, a success coach, an entrepreneur's coach, all that stuff. So I started to read about that and started to dream about that, started to pray about that, and started to explore that. And so I went and got some additional training to be a coach, and then started to do that on the side. And we prayed about, it felt right. It was starting to click. It wasn't necessarily easy, but it felt right. And we thought it was probably going to be about a 5-year process to get this thing launched and to be able to leave my, day job, all those things. But God, in a short period of time, showed off and, pulled off some miracles, things like that. And we were able to do that. I thought it was going to be 5 years. We wound up doing it in 5 months. And God showed off and has blessed our business. It hasn't always been easy, but he's always been trustworthy and kind and funny. And we've been able to build a business now where I coach and speak. And then we also train up coaches and speakers as well. And it's just been a powerful, powerful journey.
Man, speak to the. I'm so glad you said it's not easy, because this is where I lose a lot of guys at sometimes. Because so many guys, when they feel like they maybe they learned this in a church sermon, or just
Yeah.
bad teaching, they think if you're doing what God's called you to do, it's like this cupcakes and Cadillacs and rainbows. It's just supposed to
Right.
be this easy path. But that has
Right.
not been my experience. And obviously it was not your experience as well. So just speak to that, why, because he's called you to it, there's still work to do. And
That's
there's still
absolutely.
hard work to do there.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's I love this topic, Chris. I'm so glad you brought it up, because especially when it comes to following God in the workplace, like in the marketplace,
Correct.
I love to dispel this myth that if God's with you, it should be easy, right? Because I think that is something that sets so many people up for failure, and it also causes so many people to quit too early. And it's one of those, I know I can point to story after story in my own life that, I prayed for easy, to be perfectly honest, Chris. Like, there are days where I pray for just a little bit freaking easier.
That's right.
Right. But I look back and go, oh my gosh, the number of times that God used or worked through, because I don't believe that God puts adversity into our lives necessarily, but I do believe that he works through those challenges to prepare us, right? And like, I can point to so many different stories in my life where he's done that, but I also love biblical stories. Like, I love Joseph, the story of Joseph. Like, I know that a lot of your listeners are humble, right? And or they want to be, they know they need to be more humble. Joseph was not humble, right? Like, he had these dreams. He was probably a little spoiled. He really talked about these dreams in a way that he shouldn't have with his brothers, ticked his brothers off, all that stuff. They sold him into slavery, thought about murdering him on the way there,
That's
right?
right.
Like, sold him into slavery, all that stuff. And then he gets this job as a slave. He excels. He brings excellence, probably not easy, but he brings excellence. And then he gets accused of rape and he gets sent to prison. And then he's in the bowels of this prison and he brings excellence and he starts to, all these things, right? And what I love about all the high points and the low points of that story is, in each one of the low points of this biblical story of Joseph, it says, and God was with him. You're like, he just got sold into slavery and God was with him. He just got accused of rape and sent to prison and God was with him. And I don't know about you, but there are days where I'm like, what is up with that? Like, that sure doesn't look like God is with him, right? But then when you read into that story, then a God suddenly happened. And everybody probably knows this story, but when you look at the story, one of the other massive discouragements or potential discouragements was that Joseph encouraged a couple of guys, and one of them then went on to Pharaoh. And as he was leaving the prison, Joseph said, "Hey, remember me. Tell the Pharaoh about me," right? And he probably went back to his cell and thought, "Okay, I'm getting out of here. This is great." And it said years later, the guy remembered him, right? Like, how discouraging could that have been too? But he stayed with it. He kept bringing excellence, all those things. And then a suddenly came. The guy remembered him in God's timing and said, "Pharaoh, you need to meet this guy, right? You need to meet this Joseph. I met this cat in prison. You need to meet him." And it said that he was whisked from the jail, basically got a quick shave, got a new set of duds, and he was in front of the Pharaoh in hours. I know some people think it was probably anywhere from an hour to 3 hours where he was in his prison cell and all of a sudden in front of Pharaoh, right? God suddenly, and all of a sudden within probably 4 hours, he was in second command of the largest country and the biggest power in the world, right? And you look at all that preparation, you could have looked at it one way going, "Man, God hates me."
Right.
You could look at it another way and go, "Oh, wow, God is preparing me." The challenge is, of course, we don't know what's always on the other side. So it's that thing of trusting to say, "Okay, God, what are you preparing me for? What do I need to do today? What do I need to learn today? Where do I need to go today? And help me trust you in that." Right. So I love that. Again, all those stories are tucked in there in the Bible of going, "Oh, wow. All right. Yeah. It's not supposed to be easy, but if God is with us, we can also feel encouraged."
100%. 100%. Guys, we're going
Yeah.
to take a quick break. We'll come back and keep digging into this with Mitch. We're making a big change that I think you're really going to enjoy. I spent a lot of time thinking about our spiritual kickoffs. And honestly, I love doing them each week. So much so, we started doing them live every Monday through Friday inside our exclusive platform. And here's the best part. We've decided to give full access completely free. So now you can join our daily spiritual kickoff space at no cost. Every day we go live to read the word, to encourage each other, and find simple and powerful ways to apply God's truth to our lives. You'll even have the chance to engage with me directly. And if you missed a live stream, don't worry. The videos are posted the same day, so you can catch up whenever it works for you. This is exclusive, behind-the-scenes content that is not available anywhere else. And now we've removed every excuse. So if you're ready to get started, head over to thelionwithin.us and grab your free access today. Let's grow together. Mitch, I'm curious for you, talk about not being easy. You said you had a 5-year plan that turned to a 5-month plan.
Yeah.
So it sounded like you had some God nods along the way, and I call them God nods. Like you're getting some
Yes.
affirmation from him. So would you walk through maybe what a couple of those affirmations were, what those nods were? Because
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes, guys, we're looking for the final picture where he may just be giving us the next step, just encouraging us to take that next step. So what comes to mind there?
I love this. I love this question because it also allows me to speak to, I don't know about you, but I've got a number of weaknesses too, Chris. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
God's given me some gifts, but he's also there. I have some weaknesses. And one of my weaknesses is potentially getting offended, right? Getting frustrated and offended by something. And especially on the subject of it should be easier, right? I talked about that I started to investigate coaching. I spent a lot of money on a big coaching program and training and all those things. And I emerged from that a better coach, but I didn't even think about it. There was no business training at all in this coach training program. And I was instantly frustrated and offended, right? Like, and part of me was beating myself up. Like, why did I choose that program? There's no business training. potentially offended with the organization, saying there's no business training, all those things. And I felt a little frustrated with God. Like, why'd you lead me to this training? It's like there's this huge hole, this gaping hole. Why is that? And one of the things that was beautiful at the time, frustrating and beautiful at the time, was God's like, well, I want to show you a way like that's going to work for you. I'm like, oh, okay. And he's like, so I didn't want you to get, influenced by the things. I want to show you something that's going to work for you. And then I felt the nudge, like kind of that thing of, I'll show you. And then if you want, you can show others. I was like, okay, all right, I can do that, And so then we started to do something together where I just, instead of somebody telling me what to do, I just started to do it. And then I got some good mentoring like you. I believe in mentoring, and I surrounded myself but with some really wise entrepreneurs who help to guide me on this. And now we have what we call the 6-figure sequence that we teach other coaches. But I look at it and go, oh yeah, I had to go through that myself. And God, in some ways, it was kind of a divine setup. It was definitely a nudge to be able to say, hey, I want to show you a way. I want to show you a path. And in some ways I needed to do that kind of without, influence and those kinds of things. So it made all the difference for me. And then I see that all the time now, that God wants to talk with us as we face adversity. God wants to talk with us about all of it, right? He's not waiting for us to figure it out and then go to him and tell him the results. He's wanting to talk to us about all of it. And I think that's another big part of the process. I know for my wife and I too, a big part of it when we were thinking through, when do we quit the day job and launch into entrepreneurism and all those things? Like, when should we do that? And we just started to say, okay, God put on our heart, talk to me about your leap number. Which at first we're like, what does that even mean? Right. Like, okay. But it was amazing because God was guiding both of us. And what's interesting, I think a lot of people, and me included, when I first started thinking about prayer, I didn't quite know how it could work. And I definitely didn't think that God would ever be specific. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I kind of thought that maybe there would be like lines or, like kind of rainbows, butterflies, and the little ponies type encouragement, or kind of the inspirational poster kind of things. But no, God is strategic, and God can be specific. He isn't always in prayer, but sometimes he can be very specific. And God laid this, what we now call the leap number process, on our hearts of saying, hey, talk to me. And basically the whole thing for us was, I knew I could not leave my day job. I couldn't replace my day job salary 100% by doing this thing on the side. But I knew that for me, it was about getting to consistency. And so what we did was we figured out that our leap number was a certain percentage of my income for a certain number of months. That became our leap number. So for me, if I could hit 35% of my income 3 months in a row, I knew that I could then leave my day job. And, if I was able to hit that while doing that on the side, then I would probably be able to replace that income when I was able to work, 100% of my time on our business. And so that became our leap number. And what was beautiful was then we had that 35 and 3 on everything. That was on our fridge. That was something we looked at on our mirror in our bedroom, all those things. And that became a prayer target. So what was beautiful about that for us was that, that then we were like, all right, Lord, show us how to do it. And when you think we're ready, help us to hit it. And that allowed, again, that sounds, I know for me, when I was first growing up, I would have never thought God would be that specific. And what's beautiful about the leap number, I've done a podcast on it since, and all of that. And we talk about it in our training programs as well. Like, some people, their leap number is more like, 50% for 6 months, which is really hard to do. But like, it can change for different people. Some people it's, 10% for 2 weeks, whatever it is, right? It's that, but God wants to talk to us about all of it. And what I love about that is that he is a very conversational God, right? And so to be able to say, okay, What's my part in that today? What do you want to do today? And what's funny too is that he's also not afraid to help us learn. And sometimes those lessons are easy. Sometimes those lessons are hard. So I know for us, when we were going after Leap Number, our first month, I hit it. I think we were just over 35%. I'm like, oh, we have got this nailed. It's like it's coming, right? And then the next month, goose eggs, nothing. And I was like, God, where are you? All those things, right? But God knew I had some more things to learn. And it was just beautiful as far as I know he knows me better than I know me. And so, part of it is he's got to create ways to help me focus and those types of things. So as long as I can stay out of that offense that I mentioned earlier and stay out of fear to the best of my ability and say, hey, Lord, I trust you and help me where I don't. It's amazing what he's been able to do through our business. And since then we've been able to, make a big impact and also then train up thousands of other coaches and speakers and things like that too. So it's just a great honor and a lot of fun, and it's definitely not boring, as you well know.
Well, maybe the guys there's probably lots of guys listening that are W-2 guys, and
Right.
they're considering taking that. What's if you had that one piece of advice you wish somebody would have told you when you were first starting out, what would that be? What that encouragement? I know you're all about
Yeah.
encouragement. What would that
Yeah.
be to that guy who's listening right now who's just on the fence?
Yeah, absolutely. So part of it is like what we've been talking about is to talk with God about all of it. And I know that might sound crazy, but it's like, or maybe too trite or too easy, but talking with God about all of it. And especially for the W2 people, like, I don't know about you, Chris, but like I saw God move in a lot of different ways. Obviously I saw God move with our 6 miracles, those types of things. So it really wasn't hard for me to believe that God could move and pull off miracles in the church. And it wasn't hard for me to believe that he could pull off miracles in hospitals, right? But somewhere, somehow, in my mind, there was this imaginary line that when I went off to my corporate job, God met me at the door and said, see you when you get
Good
home.
luck.
Right? Exactly. Right. I don't go over there. Yeah. Like, oh, business, I don't go over there. Right? Like, there's no line. There's no line. That line does not exist. God's like with us in all of it. And so that's a big part of it. He wants to talk with us about all of it. And I also believe that God doesn't just work through entrepreneurs, right? I believe that God works through us in every opportunity, every position that we have. I know for me, one of the other big impacts of my faith was when I was in that training position in the $2 billion pharmaceutical job. God plunked me down to one of the other training managers was right next to me, and he had a big old Bible on his desk, which in the corporate world at that time was a big no-no. But Pete, my good friend and somebody that I did a lot of projects with, he was like, you know what? I'll take the heat. I want that Bible right there. And he's like, I know I need that Bible right there. And that was one more thing that just helped me to know God's everywhere, right? God can move and all those things. Now, I will say that, for us, part of it was, especially as I started to get that nudge that we're supposed to build our own business, start to do this thing. Part of it for me, and you'll appreciate this because I knew you're a systems guy too, was that God put in my heart to start focusing on systems, not savings. And this might sound a little crazy, but especially in working with so many different mentors and talking with people who had done this kind of thing, there were a lot of people who were thinking about leaving their job. And the big recommendation was save up, have 6 months of savings or have a year of savings and then go quit your job and then go build your business. And through wisdom of mentors, but also through what I was getting in prayer, that felt a little dangerous to me. And what's interesting is a lot of the mentors that I talked with, they reinforced that focusing on savings versus systems is dangerous, because what a lot of people do is they say, all right, I'm going to work my butt off. I'm going to get a year's worth of savings. Then I'm going to quit my job and then I'll figure out what I want to do with my life, with my business, all those things. But what winds up happening is they'll say, well, I've worked real hard. I've got a year's worth of savings. So now I'm going to take a month off. I'm just going to give myself a break and then I'm going to start the business process. Right. And then a month goes by and then somebody gets sick and it's like, oh, you know what? Mom's sick. I'll go live with mom for a little while, take care of her because I got this money and I'll work on the business after that, and all of a sudden time flies and they don't have a business and they're in a world of hurt, right? Whereas I found working on our systems, the business systems, I know this is what you're doing as well. It's like working on the business systems of being able to say, all right, how do I get a business up and running that I can sustain, even doing it part-time, doing it on the side? I'm going to work on those business systems, because that, if I build that, then when I do leap, when I do step out, right, I'll be stepping into systems that are already working, as opposed to just a savings that I hope will work someday. Right. So God just put it on my heart to focus on the systems of actually building a business. Right. And what's beautiful about building a business, when you're building a business on the side, is oftentimes, I always say, and a lot of the people that are in our coach training program and speaking training programs, they're doing it on the side. And I said, well, that's the best time to start a business, and the best way to build a business is when you're forced to not do it 60 hours a week, not do it, all the time. When you're forced to do that, then I said, a lot of our folks, I'll say, hey, if you can do this, business in 10 hours a week, then maybe don't, when you decide to do it full time, if you do decide to do it full time, don't just assume that you've got to do it 50, 60 hours a week. Right? Continue to use these systems, build these systems, but also build a life so that you have the flexibility and ability to go do the things that God's calling you to do in your life as well. So the big thing for us has been focusing on systems. And obviously savings is not a bad thing. I fully recommend and endorse building savings and wealth, and honor God with those things, but focus on the systems first. And then that savings and wealth can come.
Mitch, great insight, great encouragement. Thank you so much for that. And as we kind of approach the end of our time here, we'd love to do a lightning round with you, Mitch, just to kind of
Yeah, I
have a little
love
bit
it.
of fun as we go towards the end. So what's a hobby, something that you enjoy doing for fun?
I am a big hiker. Also, I have a big dog. I have an Akita, and he needs quite a bit of walking, which is great. So it's a built-in workout program. Like I might fudge on going to the gym, but when Hero, my dog, looks at me, I'm like, oh, I can't fudge on taking this walk. So I love hiking. I love exploring. We live in Iowa now, but we've lived in different places and spaces, and love the mountains and things like that. So yeah, we get a lot of hiking in.
That's awesome. Awesome. Now,
Yeah.
after the hiking and all that exercise, what's your favorite food? What's your go-to?
Oh, boy, I do like to eat. That's why I have to exercise. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like,
I
so
feel you.
I'm a big fan. So, it's fun. I like to create, things. Like our son just got on the bus this week to be deployed. But there were certain things he wanted to have: spaghetti. He wanted to have, stew. We have a family recipe for stew, and I love like diving deep on those things that. But I also don't mind a burrito the size of a football either. So those are I love making spaghetti. I love making stew, but the burritos I'll leave to the professionals. But I try to get one of those a week.
There you go. There you go. That's awesome. What about superpowers? I like asking this one. If you had a superpower, which one would you pick, and how would you use it, Mitch?
Oh man, come on. Cause yeah, I mean, you got flight, you got strength. I will say, lately, and especially with having two boys now, one on the other side of the planet, one on the other side of the country, I think flight might be kind of cool, right? Like, we were thinking about, we have a family cabin out in South Dakota, and we had a little extra time as we were getting ready, Ben ready to get on the bus and all those things. And we had about an extra hour and a half. And I was like, what if we could just run out to the cabin for just an hour? Right. Like we were all talking about like, oh, we could just take one quick, trip on the lap of a hike that we love out there. And that was literally a conversation we had yesterday. And we were like, well, if we had a plane, if we had a helicopter, those things wouldn't be fast enough. But then flight, if we
Yeah,
could all fly,
that's right.
we could get it done, right? I mean, Superman, Christopher Reeve changed the like
That's
timing on the
right.
planet by flying fast enough. So I'd have to go with flight.
100%, man. I'm
Yeah.
with you on that one. That would be a great one to have. So, how about when you look back over the last year, where did you spend too much time? We always try to give guys this insights to maybe We don't always steward the time well, but anything comes to mind where you think, "Hey, man, I wasted a lot of time here."
Oh, yeah. So I am a recovering worrier. Not a warrior. I said that once in a speech. I was like, I'm a recovering warrior, and somebody came up and like, thank you for your service. I was like, no, 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 recovering worrier, not warrior. And so I am better than I was yesterday, but I still have work to do. And I know, Jesus talks about fear a lot for a big reason, right? And I think people that are called to do big things often were visionaries. I know you're a big visionary, and that's a gift set, right? Like that's a gift from God to be a visionary. The challenge with that gift set oftentimes is that because we can see big, right? We also tend to see all the things that could go wrong. Right. And so I know for me, like I'm working on it. I am getting better. I'm diving into different ways to go deeper in the word and to be in relationship and to pray and all those things. But I still, if I look at the last year, I still spend more time at least being tempted to worry and be in fear than I want to. And I love that story. One of the stories that I'm just uh, fixated with and just love is there's a story in Mark 9. And I love the Bible. Bible's so freaking cool, right? But I know about, like, if I was in charge of writing the Bible would probably be about 25% of what it actually is. Cause I'd probably be tempted to remove all the stories that make humans look bad. But I love how God's like, yep, you guys are a mess, and I love working with you. So I got to, so he keeps the stories in there. But one of my favorite stories is the dad who brings his kid to Jesus. And the kid probably had epilepsy because it said he was having seizures and to the point of getting thrown into fires. And, and I just can't even imagine. I mean, you've got your beautiful daughters. Like, I can't imagine being at a time where like, like you you don't have any options. Like there's no doctors that can, all the doctors are shaking their heads saying, nope, can't do anything for you. Right. And this dad brings his kid to Jesus and says, can you help him? Will you help him? Can you heal him? And Jesus says, do you believe I can? And the dad gives the best response, one of the best responses in the Bible. Like, I believe, and help me with my unbelief. And I love that Jesus didn't do a qualifier going, wait, are you at 1%? Are you at 90%? He just said, I can work with that. And he healed the kid. And I love that God is not waiting for us to be perfect, right? He's just saying, hey, belief, yeah, that's awesome. I'll meet you in that. Unbelief, you bet. I'll meet you in that. Let's go. Let's talk about all of it, right? So that's, if you ask me, that's something I'm working on and getting better every day, but still not where I want to be yet.
Which I love that answer, man. Last one for you here in the lightning round is, what do you hope the guys remember the most from our conversation today?
Yeah. That my prayer is that each one of us, and I know this is a big vision for you as well, that each one of us can be more of who God created us to be. I was thinking about comparison this morning, and comparison, it's interesting. Comparison is one of those things of, our brains are designed. There's evolutionary psychology. I don't believe in evolution as far as across species, but I do believe a little bit in evolutionary psychology, which is just how our brains have adapted over time. And they say that in evolutionary psychology, they talk about upward and downward comparison, and that in some ways it's good. Like that, back in the time where we would get kicked out of villages for making bad decisions, and getting kicked out of villages meant you were going to be eaten by a tiger or a lion that night, like having some upward downward comparison going, am I being a good member of this community? Am I bringing value? How am I doing compared to the rest of the village? Some of that is good, but comparison is deadly when it comes to, and I think the enemy has just had a heyday with social media and comparison, obviously. And part of it is like, we think we are running races with everybody that we look at. And God's like, no, I want you to be all that I've created you to be. And that's what I want to encourage every listener to hear today, is that we want them. I know you do too. Like, we want them to be all God created them to be, their skill sets, their gifts, their superpowers, all those things. And that's my prayer for our boys every night is, Lord, help them to be all that you created them to be. That's my prayer for my wife. Help her to be all that you created her to be, which means I also need to let go of some of the control of what I think they need to be, right? And to say, all right, God, what do you want them to be? And so that would be my heart, would be that they would have, that kind of conversation with God, because there's core elements that never change about who God's created us to be. And then there are some elements that are seasonal. And sometimes he's going to call us to one thing in a season of what we might do with our hands, right? And the work that we do and our career or our career track or whatever. And then those things, those seasonal elements might shift over time. So, but that just makes for good conversation with God too.
100%. Well, Mitch, this has been great. Where do you want to send the guys to connect with you, the wonderful things that you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So if they just want to go find out more, they can go to mitchmatthews.com, 2 T's in the last name. So mitchmatthews.com is a good place to start. If they're entrepreneurial or they're in business, or specifically if they're wanting to be a coach or a speaker or a content creator, all of those, we did create a free resource of 11 prayers that I lean on for growing our business and our impact. And you can download that as a free tool at mitchmatthews.com/11 prayers. Something that people have really been encouraged by. And it's something that my hope is your people would enjoy it as well.
Awesome, Mitch. Well, thank you so much for that. So guys, go check those links out. Mitch, thank you so much for coming on today. It's just been an honor. Love your story, your testimony, and the impact that you're making.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. Love what you're doing, man. It's a true honor.
Have a great day.
You too.
Most men are fighting battles no one sees. Strained marriages, silent wounds, pressure to lead without a place to rest. That's why we created our community, to help build strength, sharpen, and support brothers just like you. And now it's even easier to join than ever. We've lowered access to just $15.99 a month. Immediately, you'll get our daily spiritual kickoffs, our Bible studies, Lion Lunches, Friday Forge, and so much more. Every man needs a stronghold, and you don't have to fight alone. Join today at thelionwithin.us. That's thelionwithin.us, and get started today.
All right, fellas, I told you that was going to be a good one. So thankful for Mitch. Again, go check out his link, all the resources he talked about there, fellas, particularly those 11 prayers. And the question of the week, though, that I really want you to think about is, how might impatience be limiting your personal trust in God? This has been a big one for me in my life. I'm a very impatient person. Just ask my wife. It drives her crazy. It drives me crazy, if I'm 100% honest with you. But I'm telling you, that's a big deal, because God's timing is perfect. He's just rarely early. And we have to remember that along the way. So, fellas, if you enjoyed this episode, if you find that there's a parts of what we talked about, Mitch and I, that you think would encourage others, please share it out. Reach down, give us a rating and review. That would be helpful as well. But primarily, what my ask for you, head over to thelionwithin.us. That's don't forget the THE, lionwithin.us, to check out all our resources. We have tons of free resources for you as well. We have our weekly roar. We have our Christian leader assessment, all our Bible studies on the YouVersion Bible app. Guys, all that stuff is at your fingertips, ready to serve, ready to equip. And for you guys who are ready to go a step further, which I hope you are, head over to thelionwithin.us and start your daily spiritual kickoff, or start your community, or put in an application to see if the leadership mastermind is right for you. So all that is found at thelionwithin.us. All right, guys, have a great day. Get after it. Come back on Friday. We'll have a fun Friday episode for you, good Lord willing, and hopefully you'll get us some encouragement and some, maybe even a few laughs from that. All right, so have a great day. Get after it and keep unleashing the lion within.